The crystalline spires of the Calraxian High Command pierced the purple skies of Nexus Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Inside the towering central chamber, Admiral Vernfal's facial ridges twitched with amusement as he reviewed the transmission for the 4th time. "We, the United Earth Federation, extend greetings to the Calraxian Empire. We seek peaceful dialogue and mutual understanding." The message was simple, direct, and in perfect Calraxian standard. Too perfect, perhaps. Vernfal's 7-fingered hand brushed across his control panel, pulling up the intelligence reports on this Earth. The holographic display showed an unremarkable planet, third from its sun, populated by bipedal beings who had barely managed to reach their own moon. "Fascinating, isn't it?" The soft voice belonged to Senior Analyst Kixara, her silver scales shimming as she approached his station. "They managed to decode our language from our boundary marker beacons." Vernfal scoffed, his ridge crest rising in derision. "Decoded our language, yet they still rely on chemical rockets. They haven't even attempted quantum fold travel. They're children playing at being spacefaring." "Children who broke our encryption," Kixara noted quietly. "The beacons were supposed to be unbreakable." "A lucky guess, nothing more." Vernfal dismissed her concern with a wave. "The Calraxian Empire spans 10,000 systems. We've ruled the galaxy for 15 millennia. These humans, they're not even a footnote in our history." In the depths of space, 20 light-years from Earth, Commander Sarah Chen watched the Calraxian response propagate across the quantum network she had personally helped design. Her lips curved into a slight smile as she read their dismissive reply. The bridge of the UES Nightingale was silent save for the soft hum of systems that by all Calraxian intelligence shouldn't exist. "They took the bait," she murmured, more to herself than to her crew. The holographic display before her showed the true extent of Earth's preparedness. A fleet of 300 ships, hidden in dimensional pocket space, their quantum drives running silent. For 50 years, humanity had maintained the facade of a primitive species, while their real technological progress remained hidden in plain sight. Back on Nexus Prime, Vernfal was composing the official response to Earth. "Let them know their place," he instructed his communications officer. "Tell them we acknowledge their existence, but have no interest in diplomatic relations with such an underdeveloped species." Kixara watched the message being sent, her analytical mind racing. Something felt wrong. In 15,000 years of Calraxian expansion, no species had ever managed to decode their language without direct contact. Yet these humans had done it, and they'd done it while appearing to be centuries behind in every other technological aspect. "Admiral," she ventured, "perhaps we should conduct a more thorough analysis." "Your concern is noted, Analyst Kixara." Vernfal cut her off, his tone carrying the weight of 15 millennia of Calraxian superiority. "But these humans pose no threat. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear fission devices. Their ships can barely achieve light speed. They are beneath our notice." In the following weeks, Calraxian intelligence continued their routine surveillance of Earth. They observed the humans' seemingly primitive space program, their fossil fuel consumption, their painfully slow development of basic spaceflight. Everything confirmed Vernfal's assessment. Earth was nothing more than another backwater world, barely worth the energy it took to monitor them. But in her private quarters, Kixara couldn't shake her unease. She had spent centuries analyzing emerging civilizations, and something about Earth didn't fit the pattern. Their technological progress was too linear, too predictable. It was almost as if they want us to see exactly what we expect to see, she whispered to her empty room. Aboard the Nightingale, Commander Chen reviewed the final preparations. The quantum network was complete, a web of invisible corridors connecting every major strategic point in Calraxian space. The fleet's new quantum torpedoes, capable of bypassing any known shield technology, were armed and ready. The dimensional pocket space generators, humanity's greatest technological achievement, were functioning perfectly. Status report. She called out to her bridge crew. All ships report ready, Commander. Her XO, Lieutenant James Martinez, responded. The Calraxians still haven't detected our quantum signature masking. As far as they know, we're still trying to figure out how to make our chemical rockets more efficient. Chen nodded, allowing herself a moment of pride in humanity's accomplishment. For half a century, Earth's best minds had worked in absolute secrecy, reverse engineering Calraxian technology from their boundary beacons while developing their own innovations. They had turned their apparent weakness into their greatest strength. No one suspected the primitive humans of being any threat at all. Send the second message, she ordered. On Nexus Prime, Vernthal was preparing to end his shift when the new transmission arrived. Unlike the first, this one was brief and to the point. The United Earth Federation formally requests a demonstration of our technological capabilities, coordinates and time to follow. Vernthal laughed out loud, his ridge crest flaring with amusement. They want to show us their capabilities. What could they possibly demonstrate? More efficient chemical rockets. But Kixera, reading the message from her station, felt her scales ripple with primal fear. The translation was still perfect, but there was something else, a subtle pattern in the carrier wave that seemed hauntingly familiar. Admiral, she said, her voice urgent. The transmission. It was sent via quantum entanglement. For the first time in centuries, Vernthal felt a flicker of uncertainty. Quantum entanglement communication was supposed to be exclusive to Calraxian technology. It was impossible for a primitive species to. His thoughts were interrupted by a cascade of alerts across his command console. Spatial distortions were appearing throughout Calraxian space, hundreds of them, each bearing an impossible energy signature. In the void between stars, Commander Chen gave the order humanity had spent 50 years preparing for. All ships, execute emergence protocol. Let's show the Galactic Empire exactly what these primitives can do. The age of hiding was over. The real first contact was about to begin. The massive screens in Calraxian High Command erupted with data as 300 ships materialized simultaneously across Calraxian space. Admiral Vernthal stood frozen, his ridge crest flat against his skull in shock, as the impossible became reality before his eyes. Analysis, he barked, his composed demeanor cracking for the first time in decades. Kixera's fingers flew across her console, but the data made no sense. The human vessels had appeared from dimensional pockets that shouldn't exist, using technology that surpassed even Calraxian understanding. Their ships were smaller than Calraxian warships, sleek and angular, with no visible weapon ports or engine exhausts. Admiral, she reported, her voice tight with tension, they're using some form of advanced quantum full technology. But it's not like anything in our database. They're not just matching our technology. They're exceeding it. On the bridge of the UES Nightingale, Commander Chen watched the Calraxian response unfold exactly as predicted. Their automated defense systems, programmed to react to conventional threats, were struggling to lock onto ships that technically existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Status of Operation Checkmate, she asked, her calm voice belying the historic nature of the moment. Lieutenant Martinez consulted his quantum-linked display. All ships report successful emergence. The Calraxian quantum detection grid is still trying to adapt to our signature masking. Their automated responses are confused. Chen allowed herself a small smile. 50 years of preparation, and they never saw us coming. Begin Phase 2. Across Calraxian space, the human fleet began its real demonstration. Ships shifted in and out of dimensional space, appearing and disappearing faster than Calraxian sensors could track. Each vessel moved with impossible precision, executing maneuvers that violated what the Calraxians understood about physics. In his command center, Vernthal was rapidly losing control of the situation. Launch the defense fleet. All ships, battle stations. But even as he gave the order, he watched in horror as the humans demonstrated their true capabilities. The Calraxian defense fleet, pride of the Empire, found themselves engaging an enemy that seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at once. "Admiral," a panicked officer called out, "they're not using conventional weapons. Our shields, they're not just failing, they're being completely bypassed." Kixera's analysis confirmed the impossible. The humans weren't attacking with energy weapons or kinetic projectiles. Instead, they were using precisely calculated quantum torpedoes that phased through Calraxian shields as if they weren't there, materializing inside ships to disable key systems with surgical precision. "How?" Vernful demanded, watching his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled without a single casualty. "How did they develop this technology without us knowing?" "Because we saw what we expected to see," Kixera replied, her analytical mind finally understanding the truth. "While we watched their chemical rockets and satellite launches, they were studying us. Every boundary beacon we placed, every automated probe we sent, they were learning from all of it, advancing their technology in secret." Commander Chen's voice suddenly filled every communication channel in Calraxian space, transmitted through their own quantum network. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Federation. What you have witnessed is a small demonstration of our capabilities. We could have chosen to strike without warning, to use our technology to devastating effect. Instead, we offer you this demonstration as a prelude to real dialogue." The bridge of the Nightingale fell silent as Chen continued, her words calculated to shake the very foundation of Calraxian superiority. "For 50 years, we studied your empire. We learned your language, your technology, your weaknesses. We could have remained hidden, continuing to advance while you dismissed us as primitives. But humanity believes in direct communication." In the Calraxian command center, Vernfall listened with growing dread as Chen laid out humanity's position. "Your empire spans 10,000 systems, ruled through technological superiority and military might. But today, that superiority ends. We don't seek your destruction or submission. We seek partnership, but it must be partnership between equals." The demonstration continued as she spoke. Human ships executed impossible maneuvers, their quantum drives allowing them to ignore traditional laws of physics. They disabled Calraxian weapon systems with precise quantum strikes, demonstrated shielding technology that adapted to any attack pattern, and showed complete mastery of dimensional engineering. "By now, your analysts have confirmed that our technology exceeds your current capabilities in several key areas," Chen continued. "This is not meant as a threat, but as a reality your empire must accept. The galaxy is changing. The era of unchallenged Calraxian dominance is over." Kixera, still processing the flood of data from the human fleet, turned to Admiral Vernful. "Sir, they could have destroyed us at any time. Instead, they're showing us exactly what they can do while deliberately avoiding casualties. This isn't just a demonstration of power, it's a message." Vernful, his pride warring with his tactical understanding, finally saw the truth. The humans hadn't just caught up to Calraxian technology. They had surpassed it by thinking in ways the Calraxians never had. While his people had relied on brute force and direct applications of quantum physics, the humans had explored dimensional engineering and quantum manipulation from entirely new angles. "Commander Chen," he finally responded, his voice carrying the weight of his realization, "the Calraxian Empire acknowledges your demonstration. Perhaps it is time for that dialogue you mentioned." Chen's response was immediate, her tone carrying the hint of approval. "A wise decision, Admiral, because what you've seen today, it's only the beginning of what humanity can offer to a galaxy ready for change." As the human fleet maintained their positions throughout Calraxian space, a new reality settled over the Empire. The primitives they had dismissed had become something unprecedented, not just equals, but innovators who had taken Calraxian basic principles and transformed them into something revolutionary. The age of unquestioned Calraxian superiority was over. The question now was, what would rise to take its place? The Nexus Junction blazed with quantum fire as the largest space battle in galactic history unfolded across 11 dimensions of spacetime. Commander Chen watched from the Nightingale's Bridge as the Calraxian Grand Fleet emerged from quantum space, 5,000 warships strong, led by the newly promoted High Admiral Vernfel himself. "They're desperate," Lieutenant Martinez observed, studying the tactical display. "Committing their entire Grand Fleet to one battle." Chen nodded, her expression grave. "Desperation makes them dangerous, but it also makes them predictable." Execute Operation Labyrinth. The human fleet, now expanded to 800 vessels, began implementing tactics that would rewrite the rules of space warfare. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, they split into synchronized quantum-linked triads, each group of 3 ships operating as a single entity across multiple dimensional planes. High Admiral Vernfel, watching from his flagship's command deck, felt his heart sink as he witnessed the humans' formation. "By the First Empire," he whispered, "what are they doing?" Kixera, now his senior tactical advisor, analyzed the patterns with growing amazement. "Sir, they're not just fighting in normal space. They're using the quantum realm itself as a weapon." The human triads demonstrated their revolutionary approach to space combat. When Calraxian ships fired their primary weapons, the human vessels would phase shift between dimensions, allowing the energy beams to pass harmlessly through the space they had occupied microseconds before. But this was more than simple evasion. "Now," Chen commanded, initiating humanity's counterstrike. The triads began their dance. 2 ships would create quantum resonance fields, using their engines to generate precise dimensional frequencies. The third would navigate through these fields, its weapon systems synchronized to exploit the quantum distortions. The result was devastating. Torpedoes that curved impossibly through space, striking Calraxian vessels from angles that should have been mathematically impossible. "How are they doing this?" Vernfel demanded, watching his carefully planned formations crumble before tactics that defied conventional strategy. "They're not thinking like Calraxians," Kixera replied, her analytical mind racing to understand. "We've always used quantum technology as a means of propulsion and weapons delivery. They're using it to reshape the battlefield itself." She was right. The human fleet had transformed the Nexus Junction into a quantum maze. Each triad's movements created ripples in spacetime, generating patterns of interference that transformed the normally stable quantum paths into a constantly shifting labyrinth. Calraxian ships, trying to follow their standard combat protocols, found themselves trapped in dimensional eddies or emerging from quantum space at precisely the wrong coordinates. All ships switched to manual navigation. Vernfel ordered, realizing that his fleet's automated systems were working against them. "Disregard standard combat algorithms." But it was too late. The human triads had achieved perfect synchronization, their movements creating a cascading effect through the quantum realm. Calraxian ships, unable to predict where the next attack would come from, began colliding with their own quantum wakes. Commander Chen watched the battle unfold with calculated precision. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Show them why we named this Operation Labyrinth." The human fleet's formation suddenly shifted, the triads realigning into a complex geometric pattern. Each group's quantum resonance field began interfacing with the others, creating a vast, interconnected web of dimensional distortions. "Energy spike detected," Martinez called out. "The quantum matrix is stabilizing." What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The human fleet had turned the entire Nexus Junction into a quantum computer, using the overlapping dimensional fields to calculate and execute combat maneuvers with impossible precision. Their ships moved through space like neurons firing in a vast cosmic brain, each movement precisely calculated to maximize tactical advantage. Calraxian ships found themselves caught in a 3-dimensional chess game, where the rules changed with each move. Their attempts to retreat were blocked by quantum eddies, while their attacks were turned against them by precisely calibrated dimensional reflections. "This isn't a battle," Kixera realized, watching the patterns emerge on her tactical display, its mathematics made manifest. They turned space itself into their weapon. On the Nightingale's bridge, Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Calrexian Empire had ruled through brute force and technological superiority. Humanity had chosen a different path, understanding the fundamental principles of space-time and turning that knowledge into an art form. "Begin final phase," she ordered. "Selective targeting only. Remember, we're not here to destroy them." The human triads executed their endgame with surgical precision. Quantum torpedoes phased through Calrexian shields, disabling engines and weapons systems without causing catastrophic damage. Ships were isolated in dimensional bubbles, their crews unharmed but unable to affect the battle's outcome. High Admiral Vernthal watched as his mighty fleet was systematically neutralized. 5,000 ships, the pride of the Calrexian Empire, rendered impotent by an enemy that had turned physics itself into their ally. "Enough," he finally commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of history. "Signal our surrender. The battle is lost." As the quantum fire died away, Commander Chen opened a channel to the Calrexian flagship. "High Admiral, your warriors fought with honor. But this battle was won long before the first shot was fired. It was won in the laboratories and universities of Earth, where we learned to see space-time not as a medium for war, but as a partner in the dance of combat." The Battle of the Nexus marked more than just a military victory. It demonstrated that humanity had not just matched Calrexian technology. They had fundamentally reimagined how it could be used. The age of brute force was over. A new era of quantum artistry had begun. News of the Battle of the Nexus spread through the galaxy at quantum speed, carrying with it the seeds of revolution. On 1,000 worlds, subjugated species watched and rewatched the footage of humanity's victory, seeing for the first time that the Calrexian Empire was not invincible. In the crystal chambers of the imperial palace on Nexus Prime, Emperor Vorax Thul thundered with rage. How dare they broadcast the battle footage? Who authorized this? High Admiral Vernthal stood unflinching before his emperor's wrath. "The humans did, Your Majesty. They transmitted it through our own quantum network. We couldn't stop it." "Then shut down the network." "We tried," Kixare interjected softly. "But they've altered it somehow. The more we attempt to suppress the transmission, the more it spreads. They've turned our own technology against us again." On the distant world of Zexra, the warrior race of Korth watched the battle with growing excitement. For generations, they had served as frontline troops for the Empire, believing the Calrexians' technological superiority made them invincible. Now they saw another path. The Korth rebellion began not with violence, but with silence. One by one, Korth battalions simply stopped responding to imperial commands. When Calrexian warships arrived to restore order, they found entire continents empty, the Korth having used their intimate knowledge of imperial security systems to vanish without a trace. Commander Chen received the news aboard the Nightingale with quiet satisfaction. "The Korth have made contact," she informed her senior staff. "They're requesting asylum and technical assistance." Lieutenant Martinez raised an eyebrow. "You knew this would happen." "We counted on it. The Empire's strength wasn't just their technology. It was the belief that they couldn't be beaten. We shattered that belief. And now," she gestured to the tactical display, where dozens of systems were lighting up with signs of unrest. On the industrial world of Mechanus, the cybernetically enhanced Vex collectives began a more subtle revolution. Production quotas mysteriously fell. Critical components for imperial ships developed inexplicable flaws. The vast manufactoriums that had supplied the Empire's fleets for millennia gradually ground to a halt. In the imperial palace, reports of rebellion and unrest poured in from across Calrexian space. Emperor Vorax Thul's rage had turned to fear. "Send the reserve fleets. Crush these insurgents." "With what ships?" Vernthal asked quietly. "The Grand Fleet is still under repair after the Nexus. The humans' quantum torpedoes didn't destroy our vessels, but the damage to their critical systems will take months to fix. and without the Vex manufactoriums. Then contact the humans. Demand they stop supporting these rebels. Kixera's scales rippled with concern. Your Majesty, we've analyzed their communications. The humans aren't actively supporting the rebellions. They don't need to. Their victory showed every subjugated species in the Empire that resistance is possible. The Empire's mystique of invincibility was our greatest weapon, and now it's gone. On the desert world of Caraxus, the telepathic mindweavers who had served as the Empire's communication specialists quietly began withdrawing their services. Without their abilities to enhance the quantum network, Imperial communications became increasingly unreliable. The Empire's response was predictably harsh and predictably ineffective. Every act of suppression, every attempt to restore control, only served to prove what the Battle of the Nexus had shown. The age of Kilraxian supremacy was over. Commander Chen watched the Empire's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain control with a mixture of satisfaction and concern. They're still fighting the last war, she observed to her staff. They think they can solve this with warships and threats. Isn't that what we did? Martins asked. We beat them with superior technology. No, Chen corrected. We beat them by thinking differently. We showed the galaxy that the Empire's way isn't the only way. That's what's really causing their collapse. Not our weapons, but our ideas. In the Imperial Palace, a new report brought the crisis to its peak. The Shadowkin, the Empire's elite stealth operatives, had vanished entirely. No one knew if they had rebelled or simply decided to abandon the losing side. Emperor Voraxthal, his proud ridge crest now permanently flattened in stress, finally asked the question that had been haunting him. How did we let this happen? How did we not see it coming? Because we believed our own propaganda, Kixera answered. We thought our way was the only way. We saw the humans as primitives because they didn't follow our path of development. We never considered that they might have found a better way. The Empire's attempts to maintain control grew increasingly desperate. Ships were dispatched to suppress rebellions, only to find their targets had already evacuated, taking vital resources and technology with them. Loyal worlds found themselves isolated as the quantum network became increasingly unreliable. Trade routes were disrupted as key spatial coordinates became unstable, victim to lingering effects from the Battle of the Nexus. Commander Chen received regular updates on the Empire's disintegration with mixed emotions. We didn't want this, she confided to Martinez. We wanted to force them to accept us as equals, not destroy them entirely. Maybe that's no longer our choice to make, he replied. You said it yourself. We showed the galaxy that the Empire's way isn't the only way. Now everyone's looking for their own path. The Kilraxian Empire, which had stood for 15 millennia, was unraveling. Not through violence or conquest, but through the simple, devastating realization that their power had always been built on a foundation of beliefs rather than true superiority. In the end, humanity's greatest victory hadn't been the Battle of the Nexus. It had been showing the galaxy that even the mightiest empire could be challenged, and that technology without wisdom was no match for innovation guided by understanding. The great hall of the former Imperial Palace on Nexus Prime had been transformed. Where once only Kilraxian nobility had walked on crystalline floors, now representatives from 100 species gathered. The Korth warriors stood proud in their ceremonial armor. The Vex collectives hummed with quiet electronic conversation. The telepathic mindweavers shared thoughts in their characteristic silence. And at the center of it all stood Commander Sarah Chen, ready to present humanity's vision for the future. Emperor Voraxthal, now bearing the simple title of Kilraxian representative, watched from his significantly smaller throne. Beside him, High Admiral Vernthal and Kixera waited with barely contained curiosity. The empire they had served was gone, but something new was about to take its place. For 15 millennia, Chen began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. The galaxy lived under one vision of progress, the Kilraxian vision. A vision of hierarchy, of technological superiority enforced through military might. That age is over. She gestured, and the quantum holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. But we didn't come here to replace one empire with another. Humanity has a different proposal. The map shifted, highlighting different regions in various colors. We propose the formation of the Galactic Cooperative, not an empire, but a federation of equals. Each species contributing their unique strengths, their unique perspectives, to create something greater than any one civilization could achieve alone. The chamber erupted in murmurs and telepathic exchanges. A Korth warrior stood, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming. And who would lead this cooperative? Humans? Chen smiled. No one species would lead. Leadership would rotate, with decisions made by consensus. But more importantly, we propose something unprecedented: the free exchange of technology and knowledge. Now it was Vorax Thul who spoke up, his ridge crest rising in surprise. You would share your quantum fold technology, your dimensional engineering secrets. Yes, Chen replied simply. And in return, each species would share their own innovations. The Korth's battle strategies, the Vex's manufacturing expertise, the Mindweaver's enhancement of quantum communications, even the Kilraxian's centuries of experience in space travel. She turned to address the entire assembly. The Empire fell not because humanity was stronger, but because we showed that there are always new ways to think, new approaches to old problems. Imagine what we could achieve if we all shared that philosophy. Lieutenant Martinez stepped forward, activating another display. We've already begun. The quantum network that once controlled the Empire, we've transformed it into an open system, allowing all species to contribute and modify its architecture. The results have been extraordinary. The display showed new technologies emerging from the collaboration. Hybrid systems that combined Vex manufacturing with human quantum engineering, Mindweaver-enhanced computers that could process information across multiple dimensions, Korth battle tactics adapted for peaceful space exploration. But this is just the beginning, Chen continued. Earth's scientists have discovered something remarkable. The quantum realm we use for our technology, it's barely the surface. There are deeper levels of reality we've only begun to understand, levels that no one species could explore alone. She gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show complex mathematical equations and quantum patterns. We propose joint research initiatives, shared academies, open collaboration, not just in technology, but in art, culture, philosophy. A true synthesis of all our species have to offer. The Mindweaver's representative broadcast a thought that resonated through the chamber. And what guarantees do we have that this power will not corrupt, as it corrupted the Empire? No guarantees, Chen admitted. Only safeguards, complete transparency, distributed power, and most importantly, the knowledge that any species attempting to dominate others would face not an empire, but a united galaxy. Kixara, watching from her position, finally understood the full scope of humanity's vision. They hadn't just defeated the Empire. They had rendered the very concept of empire obsolete. The discussion continued for hours, representatives from each species adding their own ideas, modifications, and concerns to the proposal. The humans listened more than they spoke, incorporating each suggestion into an evolving framework for galactic cooperation. As the session drew to a close, Vorax Thul approached Chen privately. You could have destroyed us, he said quietly. After the battle of the Nexus, after the rebellions, you could have taken everything and become exactly what we fought against. Chen shook her head. The future we envision isn't built on destruction, but on transformation. Even the Kilraxians have something valuable to offer, if you're willing to learn to share rather than dominate. The former emperor was quiet for a moment. 15 millennia of history, transformed in a matter of months. Because you showed us a different way to think. That's humanity's real strength, Chen replied. Not our technology, not our tactics, but our ability to imagine something better. And now, that imagination is multiplied by every species in this room. As the delegates departed through quantum corridors to their respective worlds, the Great Hall of Nexus Prime stood as a symbol of change. The crystal spires that had once represented Kilraxian might now reflected the light of a new dawn. A dawn where power came not from domination, but from cooperation. The age of empire was over. The age of imagination had begun.